The following is rated TV MALSV. It contains strong language, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome once again to the show where we talk about everything and anything nerdy. I am your host, Devious Dave Rose. Today I'm joined by Doc Holliday. This is episode number 4, and I'm here and ready to tell you about today's discussion where we talk about the probability that the revolutionary Shenmue video game franchise will be moving to various Sony platforms. So now I will defer to Doc Holliday, who has a little more to talk about on the subject.
Alright, so a lot of rumors have been floating around about Shenmue 3 coming up on the PlayStation 4, and the basis behind that is that Sega lost a copyright patent to the Shenmue franchise. Some people claim that Sega just didn't give a shit and didn't want to do anything with it, so they just let the copyright go. Others say they had their hands up their asses and just forgot about it. And that's a whole other discussion. But anyways, there's a lot of rumors that Sony is going to pick it up. And that Shenmue 3 is going to be on the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 4. So the reason that's big news is because the Shenmue fans are a rabid fan base, and they've been wanting another game since 2003, 2004. And the reason Shenmue 3 got canceled in the first place is because Shenmue 2 only came out in Japan, and it was only on the original Xbox. And that's basically why the series got canceled, and we haven't seen it in 10 years.
And that is quite unfortunate because this, in fact, was quite a revolutionary game. It was quite different, and I do remember actually not only briefly playing the game on the Dreamcast, which we will be covering definitively in a future episode on Anything Nerdy, here exclusively on Reckless TV. But I also remember when this came out exclusively for the Xbox, or should I say the original Xbox, because we can't call it Xbox One. And in fact, I do remember reading that this was created because of the demand that there was, especially in Japan, where the Xbox original didn't have that much traction when it first came out. So, from my knowledge, it seems to be that this may be a good thing. However, I'm not too sure what I can think about when it comes to Sony controlling this franchise, because it is in fact a slippery slope. But Doc Holliday, why don't you speak more about that?
Honestly, I would just be happy to see the franchise come back and us get that ending we've been wanting for over a decade now. I don't see why Sega didn't do anything with it. They had plenty of chances to do it. And to me, it was stupid of Sega in the first place to, for one, only bring it out in Japan. And for two, to put it on the console that ain't selling in Japan. The reason the Xbox didn't sell in Japan is because it was an American-made console.
That's exactly it.
At the time, Nintendo and Sony was the big thing in Japan.
And that's quite true. So, although you may want to try to tack on a franchise onto a specific console, it may not always lead to the best results. Now, I can't necessarily speak on as to why Sega let go of this particular franchise, but they did face a big problem after the Dreamcast and ended up leaving the hardware market solely for creating games. So that being said, perhaps that has something to do with this situation. But considering the fact that this game may in fact be released for current generation consoles, who knows, perhaps we may be able to see a good game. However, it, I think, really depends on the manner that they decide to handle this franchise and what they choose in regards to this ending that you have been mentioning that the fans have been clamoring for over a decade.
My biggest fear, though, it's going to have Duke Nukem syndrome, and by that I mean it's the game that everybody's been waiting for, and then if like when it finally does come out, it's going to sell gangbusters just on name alone, but the actual product is going to be crap, and that's basically what Duke Nukem Forever was.
Indeed, it was, and that is quite unfortunate. Let's hope it does not become what Duke Nukem came to be, because for a long time, Duke Nukem was considered vaporware and was never going to exist. But when they finally came out with the game, although you are correct, there were many people just clamoring for this game, the end result was a bad product. And we definitely do hope here at Anything Nerdy that this product, in fact, does do justice to Shenmue, and that it can, in fact, provide the satisfaction and enjoyment that game players out there have been wanting. So, any final words, Doc Holliday, in regards to the Shenmue franchise or the probability that this game will come out on a Sony specific platform?
Basically, Shinmu was that sleeper hit everybody talks about. It came out of nowhere. Nobody knew what it was, but it sold gangbusters. It was that really strange game that had martial arts fighting like the Yakuza series, but it had RPG elements that just kept you playing for hours and hours. And if they really recapture that, because there's really been a drought for good games like that, I think PS4s are going to fly off the shelves if it does actually come to PS4.
And that, in fact, would be a nice thing to see because, in my opinion, and I'm sure you might share this as well, the PS4 does have the superior graphics system compared to the Xbox One. Now, some viewers might have some contention with that, but I'm not referring to the social aspects of the Xbox One. I'm referring to the graphical output and capability of the hardware. And just like with the PS3, the PS4 does seem to be a little better when it comes to its performance. But then again, we must remember that sometimes these consoles are subsidized by the company, which added to the $1 billion loss that Sony faced a couple of years ago. So, as good as the console might be, if people aren't buying it and the price is getting discounted, that might be the end of a console. You never know. So, we're going to conclude this episode by saying that if you liked today's show, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any comments about it, please sure to put them down below. And if you want us to review any particular topic here on Anything Nerdy, be sure to let us know. I am Devious Dave Rose. Be sure to check out my Spreadshirt store, where you can find some just absolutely incredible gear. Spreadshirt. Actually, apologies, that's deviousdaverose.spreadshirt.ca. And I would like to thank everyone here for joining us on this episode of Anything Nerdy. I've got Doc Holliday here as my special guest. Thank you very much for joining us. And as always, stay devious.